Hari Om. Namaskaram to all of you. Let us start today on this auspicious day of Gita Jayanti with a small prayer. Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Parabrahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah, Asato Ma Sadgamaya, Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya, Mrityor Ma Mridamgamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Namaskaram to all of you again. So first of all, let me really thank the Temple Link organization along with the ISKCON for providing me an opportunity to connect with all the disciples of Guru Ayyappan and Sri Krishna, and it is really a great day for us to be together and think together on this auspicious day about the Bhagavad Gita. So the Bhagavad Gita is the Janma Din for today, right? So what we will do today in the next few minutes, let us think that how the birth of Gita can illumine us in our life and how that can make a difference. So let us think together and let us see how we can really make this is a big start for that birth of Bhagavad Gita in all of us to illumine our life. In our life, we always have different goals. Few are short-term goals and many are like a long-term goals. When we talk about the goals in life, if you see, it depends on person to person, it depends on age to age, depends on circumstance to circumstances. The goals keep changing. For example, for a small kid, his aim or his goal, he wanted a specific toy for him, right? And after some time, then his goal is switching over to something else. For a teenager, it is different. For a male, it would be different. For a female, it would be different, and things like that. So we will be having different kinds of goals starting from our childhood, then coming to the schools, then we will be going to the next level, then the marriage, then you will become a father, then you wanted to acquire few objects and things like that. So in life, everyone, all of us are, when we are in this world, we do have different kinds of goals, right? And incidentally, what happens that some of the goals is opposite in nature. That makes them more comfortable. For example, a youth is aiming to get married. So when he gets married, he becomes happy. So that is one of the goals. But for another person in a similar nature, his goal is to get a divorce, totally opposite. So it is not necessarily that everyone is aiming the same thing. So you can see different kind of a opposite in nature. And if you see any type of goal, what is finally we are looking for it? Definitely happiness. No one in this world is aiming for getting a sadness. Absolutely not. Every one of us, whatever the goal may be, even for a thief, after doing certain thing, he gets happy about that, based on his samskara and based on his vasana. So now the question is, we will be having goals with respect to getting money, with respect to getting some objects, maybe with respect to place. Some people know they aim to reach, say, in a developed country like Europe or America, to have some sightseeing. So that pleasant moments make them happy. Some people wanted to get some positions. That position makes them happy. Some people want to buy a house. They wanted a palatial bungalow and things like that. That makes them happy. Some people want different kinds of gadgets and objects, cars and things. So it is an era of so many gadgets are in place. So many keep changing that, right? But the problem is why we are keep changing the goals. Because the happiness what we got out of a particular goal is only in temporary nature, right? It is not staying for too long. It is just for few minutes or few days. Immediately what happens that is no more really making them happy. That is why the opposite goal, the person who first time marrying, that was his goal and he was so excited to get married, and after some time there was some unfortunate instances, then his aim became totally opposite. So it means that whatever you are searching for happiness outside is only temporary. It is not an eternal bliss, or it is not an eternal ananda. That is what we are always looking for. If we got a happiness in one particular goal, then definitely you wouldn't have gone for the next one. So it means that it is not an eternal happiness. So how we can move from this temporary happiness to a permanent and eternal happiness? I think that is the key significance when on this auspicious day of the Gita Jayanti, we need to see that how the Bhagavad Gita, the great advice from Sri Krishna to Arjuna, can help us in transforming our happiness to a permanent one. Don't you think that we all need that kind of a eternal permanent happiness instead of keep changing the goals for a small thing, right? So, and the human beings are completely engaged in activating different goals, and entire time is spent on their life with a lot of stress and strain, keeping a goal, fulfilling, again changing and things like that, right? So what is happening? So the key reason what you see in Bhagavad Gita, that we are searching the happiness outside. We are searching the happiness outside. That is why it is temporary in nature and it is not really permanent. So in order to change from a temporary to that eternal permanent happiness, you need to really change the direction of the search towards a little bit inside. So the fundamental human problem is the misplaced search. The search for happiness for a place or an object or a status. So different way of happiness, right? With respect to the body, with respect to, so there are lots of changes, it keeps happening, right? Now, in order to understand this a little more better, there are two aspects in life. Any goal, right? Anything what you do in the life, there are two aspects to this. One is there is an experiencer who is experiencing that happiness. That is that I, that is the self, who is experiencing the happiness. For example, you are going and seeing a movie, right? So there is a person experiencing that happiness, that nice moments, kind of a thing. So that is the I, the experiencer, the subject. And the other aspect of thing is the world of objects or emotions and or thoughts. So different thoughts coming, right, or emotions, that is another aspect of that. So always these two aspects coming into the life. I will repeat, one, I is the experiencer, the subject, and the world of objects, emotion or thoughts, right? Now let us think, the property of happiness is with respect to the object or subject. That is what we wanted to analyze. So probably I will try to take with an example. See, we all are familiar with an object, say sugar, right? We all know sugar. And what is the nature of the sugar? Nature of sugar is sweetness. Irrespective of the place, whether you are in India, whether you are in Bangladesh, whether you are in USA or Europe, anywhere you go, irrespective of the time, irrespective of the circumstances, the nature of sugar is always sweet. So sweet is the nature of that. In case that nature is going away, then it is no more a sugar, right? Now think that, so this is an object. What is sugar? I am taking this example as a representation of the worldly objects, whatever it may be, right? So every object, everything in this world has a certain nature. So that nature in spiritual, we call it as a dharma. So for a sugar, that sweetness is the dharma. So when that sweetness goes away, then it is no more a sugar. So that is the dharma of that object, or a worldly object is a sugar. Now, are we really happy all the time with a sugar? So you are taking a laddu, right, as a sweet. Definitely you enjoy the sweet. But if I am giving second one, or if I am giving the third one or fourth one, then no more happy, right? If I wake you up early morning at 2 o'clock, will you be happy with that sweet? No. So there are people who like sweet, or there are people who does not like sweet. Even if the people who likes that sweet, it is not temporary, not constantly every time enjoy that nature of that object. It means that the happiness is not the property of the object. If it was the property of the object, you would have felt enjoyment and happiness all the time, irrespective of place, time, does not matter. Every time whenever you are eating sugar, you would have felt happy. But that is not the case. Now the same concept you extend to different objects. You take anything. When you got a toy in the childhood, so it is not the property of that object made you happy. Right? Are you getting that? So definitely it is not the property of the object where you are getting happiness. So now by law of remainder, right, if happiness is not the nature of objects, then what is left out? It has to be the subject only. So always it is a subject. And what is a subject we discussed? Two aspects of life. The I, the experiencer. That is the self, that I, right? There is some I, that power within us, who is experiencing that happiness. So the happiness is reflecting in the I, not on the object. But we are misguided, or we are misunderstood, or the way we are thinking that happiness is always coming out of the object. That is why we keep changing the goals and we keep moving to different objects and things like that, right? So it has to be as a remainder theory, it has to be the nature of the subject. Now, we talked about the subject, that experiencer is I, which is the source of happiness. That I, the subject, is the source of happiness. That subject I am the infinite bliss, right? I am that. That is what the thing which we are seeking. What we are seeking always for happiness. So any goal, whatever we are doing, what happens is, irrespective of thing, everything we can easily club together into three aspects: security, peace and happiness. SPH, let us take it in that way, right? Say suppose example, you are working in a company, you wanted to save some money for your future purpose. You are taking an insurance. So basically for your future security. So that is also a goal, right? It is the goal need not be as every time like a instantaneous pleasure, not necessarily to be, right? So everything, if whatever goal we are having, whether it is a short-term goal or a long-term goal, finally we are looking for happiness only. So either security, peace or happiness, right? So it is definitely wrong to think that object alone makes us happy. And definitely object is not really making us happy. As per the theory, as an example of the sugar example, we already found that it is not the property of the object and it is property of the subject alone, right? Now, when happiness is the property of the subject, which is the self-I, how we can reach there? That is the next question. See, we understand now what is happening. We are becoming like an extrovert. We keep going externally and looking around the world for getting happiness with the different goals, different things, all permutation combination we are doing. And we found with an example that it is not really the property of that external objects, and definitely it is the subject which is making the happiness. Now how we can reach towards that big I, that is a self-I, where that eternal happiness is there? It is very simple. The inherent nature of any subject or any object, right? Any object is, it always goes back to its original state. That is the tendency. You should allow that object to go back to the original state. Let us take a simple example. Let us take a ice cube. So what is the nature of that ice cube? The real is water, right? So when it boils the water, it becomes like a boiling water. When it makes to say 0 degree, that becomes ice. Now, if you leave that ice in the normal circumstances, not keeping any refrigerator or anything, then it automatically goes back to its original state. What is that original state? It is water. Similarly, human being, the nature is that infinite bliss, that is the self-I itself. If you allow that human being in that normal ideal situations like the normal temperature, how the ice moves into the water, similarly, if you are leaving that, it automatically goes back to that infinite bliss. Now, what is the challenge for us? It is not in that normal room temperature. That I, the subject, that Atman or Brahman, in spirituality we have many words to that. When we add with our mind, the thoughts, then it becomes in a different personality, different Vyaktitvam it happens. So when it comes to in a different Vyaktitvam, there are certain resistances, certain roadblocks, which makes this situation not ideal. So it is not going back to its original state of that infinite bliss. It is not really happening. Now let us see how Bhagavad Gita is helping us in removing that obstacles and how we can allow us towards going to our natural state of that infinite bliss, right? So our own nature is never a burden to us. It is always a bliss kind of a thing, right? So any unconditional objects, happiness is our own true nature. Basically, when you condition our mind to a certain thing, that is why it becoming unhappy kind of a situation. Your mind is conditioned in such a way, then you are tuned to that external world. You are always your search is like a misplaced search. You are going outside for happiness, right? Now, do we need to invent that happiness within us? No, it is already there. It is in abundance. It is plenty of, it is the true nature is happiness itself. There is nothing to be really invented. For example, in a sea, it's full of water. There is no external water is required to make it more, right? It is the, but you should be there. But when you are coming out of the sea, then you will be struggling to get water. Now you are part of that sea, you are the sea. So there is no need of searching outside. Only thing now, we need to really realize or discover that internal happiness. So discover means we are not inventing anything, just dissing that cover. There is some kind of a cover, right? That cover to be removed. That is how the blessing of Bhagavad Gita coming into us on this divine day of the Gita Jayanti, right? Let us see that. So to make it little more easy, that we all are aware about the well, right? Let us take the bore well. So when we dig a bore well, what typically do? We should find a place, an ideal place where you can easily discover the water under the ground, right? So you did some kind of a search and some kind of methods and process and thing. You found a place where this is the right place to make a bore well. So when you bore well, there are different layers of obstacle to get that water. Maybe initially some hard sand, maybe some clay, right? Maybe some soft sand later, then maybe some rocks, right? So different kind of objects are there in different layers. So what you do, you will be using the appropriate process and appropriate tool to remove that layers, right? That is how you are discovering that water. It is there in plenty under the ground. So in the first layer, you understood there is some kind of a soil. So you use a specific tool or something, or a different drill or something. Then you keep going. Finally, you discover that plenty of water, it oozes out, right? You are not discovering, you are not inventing anything, you are just dissing that cover. Once you remove that cover, the water is plenty, right? Only challenge is that removing the layer, right? Now let us see what kind of a layer or obstacles is really making us not to happen. Now to make it little more understanding, anything if you want to gain, there are two kinds of a gain. One is gain of the ungained things, because you have so far not gained that stuff. Another one is gain of already gained things. So what do you mean by that? Gain of something which is not gained. So you should suppose you wanted to study something, or you wanted to acquire something. So first thing, you should have a knowledge about that, right? Once you have a knowledge about that, then you should do some work to get that. You should act, you should work for it, some action should be done. So in order to gain that ungained thing, the formula is knowledge plus action is equal to gain. Now assume that you wanted to gain something which you already gained. So in that, no action is required. For example, what does it mean? Suppose this is my specs. Now, do I need any action to get this specs? It is already gained. It's already, I got a specs, it is there. Only thing, I should have a knowledge that the specs is right in my eyes. So that knowledge itself is gained. So the first one, which is not gained, which is external. So knowledge plus action is equal to gain. This one which is already gained, so just that knowledge alone is sufficient in order to gain this specs. Otherwise, I will be keep searching outside. If I don't have the knowledge, the specs is right on my nose. Once I have the knowledge, there is no action, no effort, no stress, no strain is required. Now with this example, let's come back to that subject I, which is the source of all the entire happiness. Is there any action is required? No action is required, because you need just the knowledge that I am the eternal source of the happiness, which is what I am searching, or it's what I am seeking for, that I itself, right? So the happiness appears ungained due to our self-ignorance, right? So the self is not really far from us, it is self itself, right? Only thing, that knowledge, right? It appears that it is ungained. Only the appearance, only that feeling that we are not gained. So we need only the knowledge of the self. So the self-ignorance is the key problem of you makes your mind to think for happiness you need to go out. So that self-ignorance is the key issues, right? So the intelligent approach is to search for something in place, right, where is available. Now the covered treasure, right, is always under the ground. The example what I said of the water is a treasure. There may be many other treasure like gold, many things we are digging from the thing. So everything is under the earth, which has a treasure. So any treasure what we are getting, we do some level of discovery, some level of removing that obstacles and things like that, right? So the tapping that eternal spring of that security, peace and happiness, the process we call it as a discovery, which is a dissing the cover. Now with respect to human being, in order to remove the layers, there are 3 layers are there. Okay, there are 3 layers which is really blocking us in going or realizing that self, right? One is the grossest form. It is in a more physical form, that is the grossest form. Second one is a little bit subtle, right? Little bit subtle. And third layer is the deep subtle kind of a situation, which is more tough to do. So when you are digging more towards the ground for getting that borewell water, that when that soil is more denser, or rock kind of a substances are there, then it is all the more tough, right? So we need to move this from the grossest layer of obstacle, then to subtle layer of obstacle, then goes into the subtlest layer of obstacles in our mind. So the place of all these layers for a human being is the mind. What is mind? Mind is nothing but a group of thoughts. Mind is nothing but a group of thoughts. So the thoughts has to be controlled or organized in such a way we are easily able to remove the layers. Again, the thoughts as a mind, we have different functions, right? So when we interact with the world, we get inputs from our indriyas, then mind will take some decision whether I want to do or not to do. So that kind of a yes or no kind of a situation, that is one function of the mind. What are the other functions? There are few thoughts which we got, which is stored in a different form, that typically we call it as a chittam, that is a stored information. So some things are stored back and something immediately comes as a buffer, like in computer, no, it always stays in the buffer. It immediately reflects and interacting or responding back through indriyas to the world, right? So this manas, chitta, ahangaram and buddhi. So these all are the four functions of thoughts, right? So the buddhi is the one which can make your emotional mind to take a decision whether you should do this or that. I should sit or stand. I should walk or run. So I should eat or not to eat. So this kind of a two dvandvam, or the opposite pair of situations, which the decision will be done by our buddhi, which is the viveka shakti, which is illumined through our ego to the real self, right? So, but in order to work that buddhi in a more intelligent way, our challenge is the three layers what we are talking in our mind. So let us understand what kind of the three layers which are really bringing a challenge for us in getting into that eternal happiness. The first layer in our mind, which is called the malam or the impurity. So when there is an impurity, the reflection of that true self is always a problem. So the malam is a Sanskrit word which in English we call it as impurities. So what do you mean by impurities in my mind? So before getting into the impurities in our mind, let us understand how the impurities can block the power of the true self. Let us take the example of sun. So sun is giving light. Now sun, we are keeping a bucket of water in the ground. Assume that the sunlight is reflecting through that water and that light is coming to us. Now let us take a scenario that water is a mudded water. Lot of impurity, lot of mud, it is not very transparent, it is not very clear in nature, that water. What will happen? When that sunlight reflects into that water, that reflection, will it be a true sunlight? No, it will not be a true sunlight. We will not be getting that actual reflection. So is it the problem of the sunlight? No, it is not the problem of the sunlight. It is the problem of the reflecting medium. In that particular case, it is a bucket of water which is mudded in nature. There are a lot of impurities. So in order to get a true reflection of sun through this reflecting medium as a water, what we are expected to do? If you are able to remove or clean up all the mud or that other impurities in the water, then when you reflect that light, you will be getting the true reflection. Similarly, our mind is a reflecting platform from that subject I, the true happiness which is up to come. There are few impurities in our mind which is blocking that true reflection. That is why sometimes that reflection is coming little bit, and so if you are able to remove that malinam or the impurities from the mind, then you will be getting a true reflection. This is the first layer. Let us come what kind of impurities really blocking us in the mind. It is easy to understand. In a bucket of water there are some muddy particles and thing. That is the thing. So with respect to the mind, the impurities are sixfold. What are the sixfold impurities? Kama, Krodha, Lobha, Moha, Mada, Malsatyam. These all are the six things. And what is the Kamam? So Kamam is not the sexual desire you are thinking, any intense desire towards this object or emotions and thing which keep thinking and blocking our action. So this is the Kamam, right? So the intense desire which is repeatedly brooding over in our mind, thinking and which is not able to further work on it. That is the Kama. Then next one is the Krodha, which all of us know, the anger, right? So the anger is a byproduct of the Kama itself. When the deep desire happens, if that expectation is not happening the way you wanted, right, that thought will move to a different state which is called the Krodham or the anger. So it is basically the after effect of the intense desire only, that Kamam only makes the Krodham. And what is the next one, which is the Lobha? Lobha means greed. So when you have a deep desire, there are two aspects to that. One, it may fulfill or it may not fulfill. If it is fulfilling, if it is not fulfilling, then it becomes an expectation mismatch that is converted into a kind of an anger. Then other option is it is fulfilling your desire. As soon as it fulfills, then the next impurity what is coming is the greed. You wanted more. Though you got it what you wanted, so you got 1,000 rupees, so immediately you were raising the bar of your goal or that intense desire. That becomes like a lobham, that is a greed. So this is the third impurity which is happening in our thing. Now the next one is the moham. Moha means what? It is a delusion, right? You are thinking something which is wrongly thinking it is right, and you start taking different decisions on that. Due to the attachment, what happens? Some sorrow comes. When the sorrow comes, your mind will not be thinking proper. Then in order to that biased thought, what will happen? You feel that this is right, right? You feel that this is right. That becomes like a delusion or a karma. So this is the fourth impurities in our mind, which is really blocking in getting that eternal source of happiness. So this is the fourth level of impurity, right? And what is the fifth one? It is arrogance. In Sanskrit, we call it as a madam, right? So that arrogance, we all of us understand. And third one is something like a jealousness, right? That is asuya or matsarya. So these all are the six impurities which is reflecting in our mind, which is becoming a roadblocker for getting the true reflection of that eternal happiness for us. I hope it is clear. So since we have a limited time, I really don't want to explain too much on all this. So the intention of today's talk on this Gita Jayanti is to get a platform, it creating a source of Gita having a birth on us, so that we all will be, so some motivation, some thought together, what is happening. So let's try to do the best today. So this is the first layer, right? The second layer is called the Vikshepam, right? Vikshepam, or some kind of a extrovertedness. And let me try to explain through our old example. We have the sunlight coming, we have a bucket of water through which the reflection is happening. So one level of first layer was the muddy impurities in the water, which is blocking the true reflection, right? And the second layer is the Vikshepam, means turbulence in the water. Assume that it is no impurities. Water is crystal clear, but it is turbulent. It is always shaking. That water is always shaking. Will that true reflection from the sun will happen to us? No. It will be a shady one, right? When the light passes on a turbulent water, the reflection what is coming out will be always like a shaky and not a proper true reflection of that. Same thing or a similar thing happens in our mind as a Vikshepam or a turbulent mind. Complete restlessness in the mind. Complete restlessness in the mind. Some kind of a wandering, going here and there. Very next microsecond, you will reach to your friend's place. Another thing, you will reach to some temple. Or another thing, you will be going into some other place. So it's keeps wandering. So this is the property of the turbulent mind, right? So also all this mental extrovertedness and the turbulent thing, we will not be getting the true nature or the true reflection of the self I, the subject happiness, which is eternal happiness. This is the second layer of obstacle. Now, what is the third layer of obstacle? We call it as an avarana, some kind of a cover. Again, I am bringing back to our old example of sunlight and the bucket of water. So the first level was impurities, second level was the turbulent water, the shaky water. Third one is some level of membrane is covered in that water, some kind of an avarana, like some kind of a cover, which is blocking the true reflection, right? So what happens if that true, only we need to remove that cover. Once they remove the cover is happening, that true reflection will happen. Absolutely, there is no problem at all, right? So here in our mind, that avaranam or a layer of membrane of cover, we call it as a ajnanam or the ignorance, right? This is a subtlest form. The first layer was the grossest form, which is all physical particles of impurities kind of, which is the grossest form which is happening. Then little subtle form, which is a vikshevam, wandering of the mind. Third level is a subtlest situation, which is the ajnanam, we call as a self-ignorance. We are totally ignored of our own self, right? Which is the true source of the security, peace and happiness. So what we are ignored about, we ourselves is the source of that infinite ananda. So that we are ignorant about, right? And we have a abundant shanti well within us, right? So that we are ignorant of about this. So we understood now what is the problem of why we are not getting the true happiness, though our true nature is that. So if you recall our old example, everything goes back to its own tendency until and unless if keep it in the room temperature, like a ice goes to the water. Similarly, we want that ideal situation to happen. The ideal situation is that we should not have impurities in the mind, we should not have turbulence in the mind, and we should not have that ajnanam or ignorance in the mind of that true self, right? So this is the blessing what we got. We have a solution for this. See, just with the problem itself, we cannot help, right? We need a solution. See, we all are under this pandemic situation. We know what is the problem, but everyone is struggling for getting a real solution. So until and unless the real solution comes, just by problem identification alone may not be sufficient enough to solve our problem. So now we have identified the problem. It is a 3 layers of obstacles, and that obstacles are well defined. Now the question is how Bhagavad Gita can help us in identifying our problem like this, and also what kind of a solution which we can take it up is through Bhagavad Gita. So Bhagavad Gita is coming out with a clear-cut solution which is given by Bhagavan Sri Krishna to Arjuna, which we all are benefited and blessed that we have a solution with us. Only thing, we don't have the access directly to the Bhagavad Gita by everyone. Now things are getting popular and popular, so it is our duty to promote this so that it becomes a solution for each and every member of the human being, the entire world, like a Kshemam, complete Kshemam can happen by promoting this Bhagavad Gita. Not only promoting, we should learn and experience it, right? So the solution what Bhagavad Gita is suggesting in order to get out of the 3 layers, in spirituality we call it as a sadhana. There is some kind of a sadhana. What is a sadhana means? Sadhana means some level of discipline or some kind of an exercise. In a very simple term I am talking so that it is easy to understand. So sadhana is some level of discipline and exercise, and here each sadhana we call it as a yogam or yoga, right? See, for example, the temple links is providing a yoga between the disciple to the temple. So you can easily connect through this platform for booking or getting different offerings to the God. There are a lot of things is connecting to us. It's a yoga, right? So yoga means anything which unites the seeker to the destination. So there are seekers and there is a destination. So anything which makes the seeker to reach that destination is called the yoga. And what is our destination here? We already discussed. Our destination is grouped as security, peace and happiness. To make it simple, let us call it as a happiness. Even security, peace is also part of a happiness. So that is what we are aiming at. So the yoga is a seeker to reach that destination of happiness in a permanent way, not in a temporary for a shorter time. So that is called the yoga, which helps in uniting to that self. So that is where the true happiness is there. Now there are different yoga is there. So let me just touch upon the 3 yogas here in addressing 3 layers of obstacle. The malinam, the impurities, first one. Second one, we talked about the turbulence as a vikshepam. And third one, we talked about the avaranam, the ajnanam or the ignorance of the self. The first solution which Bhagavan Sri Krishna is giving to us through Bhagavad Gita is the yoga which is called the karma yoga. The term is quite familiar to all of us. Many people have learned, understood, all of us have understood, but the real experiencing or executing that karma yoga in the real life is always a challenge. We need continued practice, continued shravanam or listening to this kind of a spiritual connect, always required in order to really make it that happen, right? So karma yoga is a solution for removing the malinyam, that 6-fold malinyam, those 6-fold impurities in the mind. In order to remove that malinyam is the karma yoga. See, all the human being, maybe the proportion may be different. Unfortunately, all our mind is a combination of all the 3 layers. It is not only one layer. Maybe some people, one layer may be more prominent, the percentage may be differing, but every one of us has the 3 layers of obstacles. As long as the mind is there when we are there, it is definitely that kind of obstacle is there. So we have a solution also. So to take care of the layer 1 solution, we have the karma yoga. And what is karma yoga? Anyway, in this discussion, we will not be able to discuss the complete karma yoga. So I'm just giving an introduction or a motivating platform so that, we all can continuously connect with the Bhagavad Gita and get that real solution of getting that eternal happiness. So karma yoga in simple term, we can say that it is a proper action plus proper attitude. We all know every time we are doing a lot of action or a karma, there is no single time we left without doing any karma. Even our thoughts are also action. So don't think karma is just with our physical work. Even the thinking, even in thinking, that is a action itself. So every action is starting from the thought itself. So now the karma yoga, there are 2 angles it. One is the proper action. So next question is, what is the meaning of proper action? We all do a lot of work. We consider that every work is normal and correct. Am I doing very right? This is the way it is supposed to be. Everyone claims that. Someone else have a different method of doing the action. He or she she will be claiming that same kind of a object. Sorry, excuse me. So here the proper action means it is not what we feel it is right. So our check should be any action which is helping to reduce any of the 6 impurities, and it is not increasing that. First of all, it should not increase. Many actions which is increasing the impurities, some actions which reduces the impurities. So the way we are doing the action, and it is not increasing, but it helps in reducing the impurities, such actions are called the proper action. I hope it's clear. So it is not that what we feel it is right or that person is happy when I do it, not in that way. Any action which helps your own impurities, not someone's impurities. You can't change someone's impurity. That person has to do in that karma yogam part. So this entire exercise, entire sadhana, entire discipline or exercise is only for us, not for evaluating others, not for assessing others. It is for our own improvement, our own upliftment, right? So any action, whatever you are doing, if it is helping to reduce that impurities and it is not aiding to increase that impurities, such actions are called the proper action. Now what is the proper attitude means? We all know the word attitude. So here proper attitude means every action there will be some result, right? Those results may be favorable, sometimes it may not be favorable. The attitude, the proper attitude means whatever be the result coming out of the action, your outlook, the way you face that situation in a very equanimous way, right? You are not getting carried away by the negative impact, right? Everything, there will be a success, there will be a failure, there will be happiness, there will be sad. So every result need not be in a favorable situation or it is in the expected level. So whatever be the outcome of the action, so the way you do the work, the attitude should be good, and the result which is coming out of the action, that also should be in a good way. You should be able to accept and take it in the nice way. If it is not happening in the appropriate way, take that is also learning for your future actions, right? If it is happening in the expected way, don't take pride yourself. It is all getting through that Ishvara divine blessing. Through the divine blessing, you are able to make it that, right? So this is the healthy attitude towards any outcome, which is a proper attitude. So the first solution of the layer 1 for the malinyam removal or the impurity removal is the karma yoga. Karma yoga is nothing but proper action plus proper attitude. Proper action means any actions which helps you to reduce the impurities, kama, krodha, moha, lobha, mada, matsyaryam. Such impurities, if you are able to reduce, then it is a proper action. Proper attitude, whatever action you are doing, either on the action or the result, in a steady way of attitude, a healthy way of attitude, or a facing the capacity to face that situation is the proper attitude. Hope it is clear. So this is the karma yoga. Now what is our second layer is the vikshepa, right? That is a turbulence in our mind. So Krishna says a different yoga, a different method or a different sadhana, which is called the upasana yoga. There are different upasanas are there in order to make it turbulence free your mind. Everyone can choose theirs. Anything which helps in reducing your turbulent behavior of the mind, that is the upasana yoga. It can very simply, you listen to a music, very soothing music, that also can be an upasana, right? So the Shastra highly says the method as a upasana yoga is the dhyanam or the meditation. Again, the word meditation is very familiar to all of us, but executing, again, it's a challenge. We need a repetitive practice. Parishilana means the most important thing, right? So meditation is quietening our mind, right? Creating a stress-free mind. Again, there are different methods of meditation. So we need to really learn these things from a qualified guru, right? So the Bhagavad Gita itself is a guru for us. Everything is described very, very well. And ISKCON is really producing and really thankful. There are a lot of study platform is created by ISKCON. We can really make use of those things absolutely very well, right? So the removal of the restlessness is the meditation, what it does. That is what exactly the layer 2. Now let us come back to the layer 3. What is the layer 3? Which is the ajnanam or the ignorance. So we need to come off, we should get that knowledge, right? So basically it is an ajnana nivarti, getting that knowledge directly. So that third layer you are able to address very effectively, so that you are directly have a special channel to reach that real self. right? That eternal happiness or the eternal source of happiness. So inquiry into our own real nature is the method called the Jnana Yogam. This is the third method or the third sadhana or the third yoga, which is the Jnana Yoga, which is the highest in nature because it is a subtlest form of the obstacle, right? So that inquiry, it is a thing which really require a lot of Shravanam and lot of contemplation on the Shravanam, whatever the spiritual studies what we are doing, and we need to do have a Nitityasanam. So these all are the three methods required to become getting into the Jnana Yogam: Shravanam, Mananam and Nitityasanam. So this is what exactly we need for getting into this. So on this auspicious day of the Gita Jayanti, I think it is a blessing for all of us. So the Temple Links has provided us a platform in getting into connect. So I wish everyone a happy Gita Jayanti. Let this blessed day to have a birth of Gita in all of us, in our mind, which help us in studying the different upasanas or different yoga, which helps us in removing all the obstacles so that we can easily dissing the cover and discover that eternal happiness. And with all the divine blessing from the ISKCON and other platform who is supporting us in making that happen, let it definitely happen thus. So I remember that Swami Chinmayananda ji's some quote. So someone went and told Chinmayananda Swami that I can chant all the Gita slokas by heart, right? And I have done this many times. So I have covered this many times of Bhagavad Gita. Like that he went with a lot of metrics. So Swami Chinmayananda Swami replied back, that is fine, really appreciate that you have a lot of love towards the Bhagavad Gita, you are able to chant in many times. So one simple question back to you. All is fine, you are chanting many times is fine. How many times Gita has passed through you? That is the most important. That was the question back to that disciple. So that is exactly I wanted to bring that in this context. So while doing this Gita Jayanti, let us make a start. We all would have acquaintance with the Bhagavad Gita. So different people are listening to this. So everyone's level of connectivity to Bhagavad Gita may be different. The people who are well acquainted and well connected with, let us see how further development can happen, and those can help others to bring into this platform of learning Bhagavad Gita and helping us in getting connecting to this real self. So on this auspicious day, let Bhagavad Gita, let it have a birth on each one of us and illumine our life in future. So I wish everyone all the best. Hari Om. So let us close with a chant. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamataya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Sarvesham Sustir Bhavatu, Sarvesham Shantir Bhavatu, Sarvesham Purnam Bhavatu, Sarvesham Mangalam Bhavatu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om.